Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. Man, it is always exciting to bring on just guests with experiences, insights, passions that they are willing to share and pour into others. And today is no exception. And I'm excited for today's podcast because I've watched this man all the way from his high school career all the way now into his professional careers. And I'm just really proud of what I've seen him accomplish and all that he's going to accomplish. And I thought he would be a very unique one to bring on because his pathway didn't just stop within the state of Texas. He's actually gone outside the state of Texas. And we're going to talk about that. John Howley, thank you for joining us today.
Aaron, I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
John, real quick, so make sure we've got everything correct. Tell us a little bit about your job, what your title is, and where you're at right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. So I'm the Director of Communications for Montana State University Extension. Started a little under a month ago now, so fresh into this new role. And my role within our department here and within the extension system throughout Montana is to provide leadership and to serve our state's communication needs. We have about 5 staff here in our department. We've got graphic designers, we've got editors, we've got social media experts, and a really top quality distribution center for our educational materials, our typical extension resources, fact guides, and such. And so we do a little bit of everything here in our department. The past 5 years, I worked at Purdue in the field as a county extension agent, as well as a farm to school specialist. So this is a brand new role for me. Communications is in my background, and looking forward to telling you more.
Very good. John, every one of these podcasts, I start off with the same question. And I'd like to start off today the same way, because I'm a firm believer that an attitude of gratitude really goes a long way. What are you grateful for today, John?
Yeah, thinking about this is my 4th week here at Montana State here in Bozeman, Montana. I'm grateful for teamwork. We've got, like I said, about 5 staff members in this department that I have the blessing to lead. But we've also got dozens of county staff, both in the ag side, which is my background, but also from the community development side and the family consumer sciences side. And of course, 4-H, we're extension. So we're the home of 4-H here in Montana. And from really day one, like I said, it's only 4 weeks in, but from day one, these folks out here in Montana have been nothing but welcoming, supportive, and looking to build partnerships and really improve our communication strategies throughout the system. So, that teamwork, I've seen organizations that, and I'm sure you have, Aaron, that don't quite embrace it like Extension traditionally does. And I'm just so very thankful today and like you said, grateful for teamwork and cooperation within the organization that I work for.
That's excellent, by the way. Yeah, I was sharing with some students yesterday. If you get to watching the news or you get too deep into social media, it doesn't take long to maybe get a little negative. And sometimes if you'll just look around just at the things that are closest to you, sometimes you find a lot of things that you can be awful grateful for, that things that put a smile on your face. And there's no question that, a collaborative work environment and a spirit of cooperation can really go a long way in energizing a day.
Oh, absolutely. And really, like you said, you can see things on social media and really in the field that I'm in, I'm on our administration team here. And so we're dealing at times already with some minor PR things that come up. Maybe a news story doesn't quite represent extension the way we want it to. And even just 4 weeks in, I've seen a little bit of that. But those small instances, like you said, of negativity, bad press, some social media things, in my mind, it's completely overshadowed by all the good things that happen within extension and within all the partners that we work with.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I would tell you, you're right. It's consistent across all platforms. So yeah, I had a guest the other day that said for every positive thing, for every negative thing that you see or hear, you need 9 positives to erase it. And that's just a challenge, but starting with an attitude of gratitude is always a great place to start. John, I want to kind of talk about your path because I think for a lot of students that may be watching this, it really doesn't matter if they're from Texas or any other state. I think it's interesting. Let's talk about your path. I met you, gosh, how long ago was that? 6, 7 years ago when you were
Oh no, I think you and I met, it probably was closer to about 15.
was it that far along? I can't see, time's flying. I'm getting old.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it would have been in the mid 2000s, probably 2000. Well, actually, maybe more like 2009, 2010.
See, it just seems
Uh,
like yesterday.
yeah,
And anyway, I just remember, you had this smile on your face. Your eyes were wide open. You seemed to be looking for opportunities. And then as I watched you, I got to see your career, both college, high school, begin to unfold. And I was wondering, could you kind of share that pathway? I think there could be students that are watching or listening that could relate to your story and kind of how you found yourself in this career. Walk us through that FFA experience, that ag science experience, and that college experience, if you don't mind.
absolutely. Like any FFA program, and I've worked with FFA both in my home state of Texas, as well as in Utah, where I attended graduate school, and also where I just left the state of Indiana. Did a lot with FFA there. So as far as my path went, maybe not what you would traditionally expect with FFA. Didn't grow up on a farm. I did have some extended family, not my immediate family, that were involved with raising cattle and a little bit with some agricultural pursuits. But for me, I always go back to attending Little League games when I was a very young man, and at the Kingwood High School FFA facilities, they were right next to the Little League fields. And so this kid that grew up in a pretty suburban area, would wait in between games. My brother would play a game, I'd go play a game, and I'd walk over from the ball fields and watch the kids shear their sheep and walk their pigs and wash their cattle. And I remember always telling my parents, and no one else in my family had done any of that. And I said, I just want to do that. I really want to be involved with that. And I hate telling this story, but it's true. They told me no. They told me I could not be an FFA. And at that time, junior FFA, was already available for middle school students where I was living. But it just wasn't going to be an option for me. That was until my first year of high school, when we moved to a slightly more rural area where FFA was more of an option. We had the area. We weren't in an HOA anymore. And so I joined the Caney Creek FFA program in New Caney, Texas. 3 really great ag teachers that still mean so much to me. Rodney Martin, Mike McManners, and Kristen Alexic. Still really good friends, mentors of mine. And they did just like people do here at Extension. They welcomed me into the program, didn't care that I wasn't from that area, didn't care that I wasn't a cattle guy, or, they just, like you kind of mentioned, I've always had this interest in agriculture. So told them I wanted to raise a pig. They helped me make that happen. And it took a lot of parents and volunteers too. I wasn't, financially quite the most fortunate, without getting too specific. And so I had folks that sponsored me. I had folks that let me, house my animals in their facilities for next to nothing aside from a little labor, cleaning out stalls and such. And so I spent 4 years in FFA and at Caney Creek High School in New Caney, Texas. And forget the agricultural pursuits. What I think has prepared me maybe the best from my FFA experiences all those years ago was the leadership aspects. So we did a lot with parliamentary procedure. That's kind of a hallmark of FFA, right? Learned a lot as far as how to speak publicly. I grew up with a horrible speech impediment, stuttered horribly, and I still get caught up every now and then with stuttering. And when I got to high school, I had gone through some speech therapy, was much better. But learning how to speak that FFA creed was a big deal for me. And I was proud that I was one of the first kids in my class to do that. I also learned a lot about just working as a team, working through adversity, whether it was competing in career development events and not quite winning. I was in a really competitive FFA area and district. I mean, maybe the most competitive in the state. And so learned a lot throughout those experiences. So spent 4 years at Caney Creek FFA and combined that agricultural leadership background with an interest I've always had, which was journalism. I've been involved in journalism in some form or another since middle school, which was a long time ago now, wow, believe it or not. And those experiences and the mentorship of my ag teachers led me to the agricultural communications field. And this is where I first actually met you, Aaron. Led me to serving on the FFA Convention Chronicle for the Texas FFA, and that's a program that still exists to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that program probably prepared me better than anything for my 4 years at Texas Tech, where I earned a bachelor's in ag communications. And that's where I also met a lot of the faculty who helped to run that program, volunteers and leaders like yourself that helped to run those conventions. And so I spent 4 years at Texas Tech, served in various leadership capacity, earned a full ride scholarship as a Texas Tech Terry Scholar, which is a program I'm still so fond of, a program that in one way or another still stayed connected to. Developed a close relationship with a mentor named Heather Medley, who's still a really good friend of mine, still lives outside of Lubbock, Texas. And so spent 4 years at Texas Tech and took a different path, really loved my home state. You probably can't find more agricultural type opportunities than in the state of Texas, but there are opportunities elsewhere. And in some cases, what I would encourage the students listening, especially, is keep your eyes open, keep your mind open to considering those. And so I met a really great professor in graduate school at Utah State University who recruited me to attend there, and that's where I earned my master's in ag extension and education. And so working under her, I specialized more in some of my communications backgrounds, agricultural background, as well as farm to school, which led me to my last 5 years at Purdue University Extension, working regionally and in a county office as both an agent, a farm to school specialist, and as a communications specialist. Just with Extension, you wear a lot of different hats, and Aaron, I know you've been around Extension. Texas A&M has an amazing program, yep, considering how many counties you have there in my home state. And so I learned a lot through my 5 years at Purdue, was involved with a lot of different programs, conferences, worked with many great farmers, agriculturalists, teachers, worked very closely with FFA, spent the last 5 years at Purdue serving as a judge for the National Communications CDE contest. That was probably one of the most rewarding experiences. And I'm so thankful that Courtney Gibson, Dr. Gibson at Texas Tech and Dr. Earlbeck at Texas Tech continued to invite me to serve as a judge alongside my wife, who also has an agricultural communications background. So we took this opportunity at Montana State, started looking at what my next career step may be. Had nothing to do with my love for Purdue, which was really difficult. But for my wife, who all of her family is located in this area, as I started exploring career options, she said, we should look somewhere a little closer to home if we're going to move again. So, and Aaron, maybe you've been through some of that before. I know you're married. And so, those decisions are important. So I saw plenty of opportunities, but wanted to really explore, my leadership abilities and really my love for communications and marketing. I'm so thankful for all the people I worked under at Purdue who brought me into various things, running marketing for conferences, both internal and external, events, both internal and external, ended up finding a really great opportunity here at Montana State, an organization I was already pretty fond of. And it's been a great month, but I'm still really excited to meet most of my colleagues. Only met, really a handful being here on campus. Sure. But really looking forward to my next many years here at Montana State.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple, 2 or 3 things that really stand out about your career, by the way, John. And that is, if I was a university right now and I listened to this interview, I'd be trying to recruit this guy because everywhere he's been, I think they're in the Sweet 16. So everywhere John Howley's been, the teams have gone on to make it into the finals, it looks like. So that's kind of funny. Something that you might not know, John, do you recognize the name Curtis Paulson, Dr. Curtis Paulson?
Not for certain. Okay. Been hearing a lot of names the first few weeks here.
So here's the reason why I share that name with you. Dr. Paulson was one of my mentors when I was a freshman at Texas Tech University. And Dr. Paulson is the one that started the Ag Communications program at Texas Tech University. And
I did not know that.
Not only did Dr. Paulson want to start a program, but he had a very high standard of excellence. And I'll never forget it. He challenged us. And the reason I share this story with you is because I guess folks like that challenge me have really equipped me to want to challenge folks like you when you were in FFA. And Dr. Paulson, I remember I was a freshman and I signed up for a senior level course. I should not have been able to get into the course, but Dr. Paulson let me stay in the course. And we studied a book by John Nesbitt called Megatrends. And we studied thinking outside of the box. And I remember he introduced us to the Mac computer, the very first Mac computer. And he taught us that it's okay to try everything. You can't mess this up. We can fix everything. And he really taught us to let our imagination go. And not only let our imagination go, but to strive for excellence. That we want a winning program. We want to be known as leaders in ag communication. Dr. Paulson went on to take that program to really premier levels in the United States before he left, and he went to Ohio State University. And he and I have a connection there because my next door neighbor was the quarterback at Ohio State that broke all the Big Ten records, J.T. Barrett. So yeah. Dr. Paulson and I have remained friends all these years. And I will tell you that he's going to see this interview, John, and he's going to be awfully proud to see what you've accomplished and the fact that you kind of got some of your start there at the program that he helped foster.
No, thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I mean, I know there were a lot of people. Obviously, that program at Texas Tech had been there for a while. Mm-hmm. And, when I think of the leaders there now, Dr. Cindy Akers and like I said, Dr. Courtney Gibson, right. Dr. Earlbeck, Dr. Myers, people I'm very fond with. And there's some younger faculty in that department too, that were graduate students when I was an undergrad, that I really look up to and really love to follow and hopefully get to see at different conferences and interactions, but loved hearing that you had that connection.
Well, I just again, I'm very proud of what you've accomplished. And, let's talk about that a little bit. So if I'm an ag student right now and I'm listening and I'm watching, and here's the thing, we know that not every student's going to watch this. Not every student is a John Howley, but the ones that are the ones that are looking for a competitive edge. They're the ones that are looking for a little bit of some insights into how do I improve myself. So if you could share with them, based on your career, what you've experienced, where all you've been, what might be 3 tips that you might share with them in terms of leadership development or career opportunity that you think they should be examining?
Yeah, 3 tips. Well, I'll go back to what I sort of mentioned a little while ago, and that was, be open-minded. Texas is still home to me. Every time I visit, I get a special feeling in my stomach, whether it's pulling up on the highway and hitting up a Whataburger or going to Buc-ee's or I've climbed Guadalupe Peak and seen the Jones, and Lubbock. But it was tough for me. I was much younger, but made that decision that there was a career path outside of the state. So my number one tip, number 1 out of the 3, stay open-minded to where your opportunities are. You never know if that's across state bounds, if it's internationally. I've worked with some really, really great people in this field that have served internationally. In fact, I had lunch yesterday with an old friend from graduate school who had just spent 3 years teaching in Australia. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit about a year after she got there, but you just never know where your opportunities may be, and don't let anything bind you to a certain area. Now, I understand there's family obligations and things, and everyone approaches that differently, but sometimes these open-minded experiences mean going to the town over here, or maybe trying a different university or partnering with a university you wouldn't expect. Second piece of advice is, don't, especially for those maybe in high school listening to this, don't get caught up in a lot of the maybe testing scores. Don't get caught up in a lot of the maybe some of the cliche academic accomplishments. Now, I certainly was proud to graduate in the top % of my class and to be involved with National Honor Society and groups like that. That's great. One of the struggles I think we face in education right now is that battle between where's this career tech and technology focus going to be balanced with the importance of the arts and the sciences. And the traditional, your mathematics and things of that nature. So, no, I wasn't valedictorian, wasn't, getting a, 30 on the ACT, but I worked hard. And maybe that's my last point is just work hard. That's a massive cliche. Aaron, you teach a lot with leadership but really showing up every day, working through that adversity, whether it's, that personal work-life balance is a really big deal. And I've shared that with the staff that we have here, that if something's going on in your personal life, you can take a step away and still be a hard worker.
That's right.
And so giving that hard work, but knowing the balance would be my 3rd tip. And that's been huge for me. There've been plenty of opportunities, especially when I was at Purdue. And I feel the culture is the same here where, listen, we know you're going to put the work in, but if you need to take a step away, I was there for the birth of my daughter, took some parental leave time. Those things are huge. And so that's something that I encourage here with the employees that I work with, and something that I hope students pick up on too.
Well, John, I will tell you, there's a lot of wisdom in what you just shared, by the way. But I think one of the things that I appreciate the most, by the way, is that what you just shared is really core values. They're really things that you possess. I would say those are John Howley's brand, by the way, because and then you what are you doing? You're living your brand. And I commend you for that. Couldn't agree with you more. I tell kids all the time, I want you to be open-minded. I guess my only caution there is I always tell them, be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. Yeah. So, you got to stay level-headed, and you got to be willing to work hard and all the things that you just shared. And I do like the fact that you're looking outside the state of Texas. I will tell you that traveling across the United States, all because of the blue and gold jacket, I've been in every state in the United States except for Alaska. And it's exactly what you're describing, John. Everywhere you go, there's an opportunity to learn something. There's another perspective on agriculture, another perspective on life, another community that has different needs and how they address those needs. And so I think this experience that you've given yourself to get outside of the Lone Star State, not that we're not proud of the Lone Star State, but to experience a professional career in other places, even university life is a little bit different. I've been on the campus of Purdue, and I've been in Utah and Montana. I was sharing with John that my sister used to live up there. That's good advice that you just shared, John. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to make sure I kind of mentioned too, I know this podcast goes for a certain amount of time. I had an experience at Texas Tech for 2 years, and I know it's a mutual friend of ours. I worked for a man named Gordon Davis, Dr. Davis at Texas Tech for CEB Multimedia, as well as my direct supervisor there was a woman named Clayton Franklin, who I know you also know. And they were a really big, I think, kindler for a lot of these ideas and thoughts that I had, and maybe I should say core values, like you kind of phrased it. I just realized I forgot to mention them too. Such a critical part to my journey to where I'm at, and things I learned from working with them, and the leadership that Dr. Davis exhibited, and the entire organization and staff there. Texas Tech just named their College of Ag after him because of an incredibly generous gift. And I'm just so proud that I've been able to interact with those sort of people, and that all of them, every step of the way, gave me a chance.
It's interesting that you brought him up. I actually have done an interview with him, and when it goes live, John, you're going to really appreciate it. It was excellent, by the way. As a matter of fact, he and I were on the phone last night after it was right at 10 o'clock, and we were vetting out an idea. And there may be more coming in discussions with Dr. Davis where he's sharing some of his insights. And so thank you for bringing he and Clayton and Dusty Moore and the Mark Johnson and the whole team at CEV up. They're great people. And, obviously I had the honor of working there when the company first started. And
that's right. Yeah. I as we're talking, I just remembered that. Yeah. You can't find a more dedicated set of people to seeing students succeed, especially in FFA.
Whoa, we covered a lot of stuff here. You gave some good stuff there, John. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I want to ask two more questions. One is, if I'm a student out there right now, John, in the career path that you've been on and the things that you've been exposed to, the companies, the professionals, the academia, are there any career opportunities out there? If I'm a student looking right now, is there anything out there for me?
Oh, definitely. Extension's always hiring, and I, did not grow up in 4-H. Obviously, 4-H and FFA are close partners. I think the success of one organization benefits the other. But I got heavily involved in volunteering with 4-H during my time at Utah State and really at Purdue. And I didn't go to Utah State and didn't go to Texas Tech thinking I'd be a county agent for 5 years, or that I'd be a farm to school specialist or work within this field. But the opportunities just absolutely blow my mind. And in the new position that I'm in this leadership role, we're hiring. Montana State would love to welcome any of our bright FFA members. We've got a great student worker here, in fact, that's going, and he'll be working as an ag teacher here before too long. And I would love to see someone like that maybe make a career transition down the line and come join our ranks in extension. So extension's always hiring. But we brought up CEV. Companies like that have been innovative from day one. They got their start, and Aaron, you were there, meat judging videos, livestock judging videos. But look at how they've expanded. And I was so thankful to be a part of that. We did a whole series on how to do an interview, on how to publicly speak, on bioscience, on GMOs and crops and things of that nature. And companies like that, I think CEV has always got a few open positions. But like I said, I'm an extension professional, so I'm gonna toot the horn for extension and say for these FFA members leaving high school, maybe leaving college as well. We've got a great national or collegiate FFA programs at many universities. Texas Tech had one. Consider extension, but also look at some of these more diverse and some of the groundbreaking fields. Technology in agriculture is a really, really big deal right now. And it has been for, forever, ever since John Deere and the plow. But at the same time, I just left Purdue, and our director and our leadership there were making massive investments in UAV technology. And our regional ag centers, these experiment stations that in some cases have existed for 150 years, they're employing these technologies to really modernize the crop production, here in the 2020s. And, you see those yield numbers continue to go up. And as we deal with what we're dealing with right now on an economic basis, there's going to be a huge role for agriculturally educated students to play a role in that. And so I'm really going to encourage students to continue to look at the technologies, but also, give Extension a call. We'd love to have you.
That is good stuff. And by the way, my kids were in 4-H as well as FFA, and I couldn't agree with you more. I get that question a lot, by the way, John. People ask me all the time. They say, well, "What's the difference between 4-H and FFA, and which one's better?" And I always tell them, I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "Number one, they're both great youth organizations." And I said, it's kind of like America. I tell people, they say that we're the melting pot. And I'm like, no. I don't like that term melting pot because I don't want my food melted. I said, I think of America and I think of 4-H and FFA like a really good salad, because I want my carrots to taste like carrots, my cucumbers like cucumbers, my lettuce like lettuce, but all together it's really good. Yeah. And I think when FFA does the best FFA and 4-H does the best 4-H, and then you bring those two together, man, what incredible difference they make. And so I appreciate you sharing that, because I do think they're both great youth organizations. I just have the pleasure of working on this side of the equation, but that was a great point. By the way, John, when did you leave Kingwood?
Would have been 20. Oh man, because I spent 4 years in New Caney. Would have been 2007.
So you weren't in high school there?
No. I went to 2 elementary schools in Kingwood, and then I attended Creekwood Middle School. Okay. And that's what we moved actually that summer before high school. I think we moved like May of 2007. And then I started high school at Caney Creek in New Caney, or it's called the Grangerland. Actually, it's a smaller little annex part of Conroe. And then that's an area that, looking back 15 years ago or plus when I was in high school, just the growth. I don't recognize it when I go back home anymore.
No, there used to when you go down 45, you would hit Conroe and that area right in there, and then you'd have a little space before Houston. Now, once you get to Conroe, it's all the way to Houston. It's that whole area. The reason I was asking is there's a counselor over there at Kingwood who was on my state officer team.
Wow.
David Knight is a counselor over at Kingwood. And anyway, he's been there for years. So just
a great school system.
It is another small world. Well, listen, John, thank you for joining us today. I did tell you I had 2 questions for you. Here's the last one. It's always a fun one. I always like to ask people something that's out of the ordinary. So I'm going to ask you, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, wow. So maybe one of the more, if the right term is eclectic things about me, I am a huge fan of hard rock, heavy metal, punk music. I think Aaron, like you said, that's a little bit of your background too. So I actually attended, this was less than a year ago, just attended a festival in Birmingham, Alabama called Furnace Fest, and 90 bands over 3 days. It was a huge splurge for myself. My wife doesn't really have much interest in my hard rock music. She said, go. I really missed my wife and daughter for those 3 or 4 days I was gone. But my favorite band is called Under Oath. They were my favorite band in middle school on up, and they're still my favorite band. They're still making music, and I'm looking at going to that festival again. Just so many really good bands. Some of this stuff, that band I just mentioned, that's Grammy nominated. They've sold 2-3 million albums.
Right.
That music's gotten to the mainstream a lot more than I think it was when I was much younger. But that concert, that Furnace Festival I attended in Birmingham, Alabama, was one of the best experiences of my life, not just the best concert.
That's awesome. I think my oldest son, Chandler, listens to that band.
Oh, yeah. They've been around for a while. Yeah,
I think so. Well, that's awesome. John, thank you for joining us today. Again, I know I join a lot of people, your parents, your family, your friends, in saying we're awful proud of you. And sure appreciate the fact that you're out there pouring now into other people. And that's a true sign of leadership. We always say that the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. And in the world of education, that's what you're doing. You're ensuring that there's going to be some big trees down the road that somebody's going to have the pleasure of sitting under. So thank you for what you're doing.
No, thank you, Aaron. You mean a lot to me. I'm glad we got to catch up, and hope I get to brush shoulders with you before too long again in person. And just thanks for the invite to be on this program.
You bet. So as we wrap up here, we always say, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. You want to grow a future, you better plant the right seeds. You better take care of them. And then you better grow it strong. And every chance we get to bring a guest onto this podcast, we're trying to bring people on just like John, who can share a story. They can share their insights, but along the way, what they're sharing are seeds of greatness, things that we can put in place in our lives and use them to develop ourselves both personally and professionally. And so John is just one of many that are willing to share their time, talent, and treasure with us, and we appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us for Growing Our Future. We'll see you on the next episode. And until then, everybody be safe, encourage one another, and be grateful. We sure have a lot to be grateful for. Thank you.